start off with to receive a short presentation from guest speakers. Sandra's doing some fundraising, so Sandra was just going to talk very quickly about the fundraising that she's doing at the moment.
On the 4th of August, I'm going to the Duke of Edinburgh for a time at Snow. So bearing in mind that I've got this lymphoma, I will do my very best to get to the top. I've got to start fundraising, so I thought I'd start it here, why not at home? So I'll leave this, and it can be passed round, and let it move the miles, if that's all right.
If anybody would like to fill it in from the public, please feel free to do so at the end of the meeting. Sorry, what?
Yeah, I'll just say. So the one with 4 streets are.
Oh, it's for the skate park, sorry. Yeah, it's just skate on the floor.
Thank you very much.
Right.
So B, to allow representations regarding planning applications. I've not seen those. We don't have Lewis Coates in disguise in the audience, do we? No? Okay, so we'll... Yes. To give a short talk. He's offered to attend the meeting and has asked if we could place it at the top of the agenda. So we'll hold that until as and when he arrives. Okay. To allow representations regarding planning applications within the civil parish of Anston to be considered later in the meeting. Any planning applications?
Could I include the licence application?
Yeah, that would be planning and licensing. Feel free to speak. Sorry, could you? The clerk will just the procedure. So the clerk will just take your name, and then she'll record what you're about to say.
My name is Ken Keaton. Could you tell me why Tesco would apply for a licence for a building that doesn't exist?
Good question.
The restaurant application was approved. It's never been started. The actual planning application is done out from it. But the Tesco agents are putting out an application for a licence for property. It seems a rather crazy thing to do.
Thank you. I think probably Councillor Jepson would be the best person to. Do you want to respond, Clive?
Yeah.
Discussing this, aren't we?
Well, I think it is on the agenda, isn't it?
Could you explain, please?
Yeah, it just says it's Tesco Express, which says Road North Anston on. That's what it's related to the application that was published in the Advertiser on the 26th of May. Councillor Graham's aware of this one as well. The planning application is still live. It's not been determined yet, so it's still a live application.
Well, that is expired in April this year.
It's not expired.
I've got that application in. The Tesco's application expired for the alterations after it's all over. But the actual application for the restaurant.
Oh, well, yeah, that will have, because it's not being started, it was granted. So that's out of time, but the one for the Tesco Express is still live. So that one supersedes the rest of it.
Except that, the basis of that application is that actually for a change of use. There's no longer the use that was put for the restaurant is no longer valid. And it's a lot easier. Tesco's with this regular. They have lots of places where they can hold that anti-economic, that closing and a farm, put many supermarkets in them because it's almost impossible for the local authority to turn them down for a change of use. Well, what I'm saying is because that application for the restaurant has expired, there's no longer, and it's a lot harder for them to get one when it's a new application. But that Tesco application should now be revoked because that is all based on that change of use.
Well, no, it's not. It shouldn't work like that. The application for the restaurant wasn't by Tesco.
I appreciate that.
The application for the Tesco Express is obviously by them, and that's the live application that's still on the books of Oxford.
But that application, if you read the edge plan report for it, it says that the substantial reason for it, and it's almost saying that, I find it, that the council can't turn it down, it's because it is for change of use from the restaurant
all I can say is the Tesco application for the Tesco Express is still a valid application. It's not been determined. Tesco submitted some more information in February this year, and I've been in contact with the planning officer who's dealing with it, and he's waiting for them to come back. Now, what Tesco do is restrict his application down for years for as long as he can. This has been in since 2015 June, so it's 2 years that the application of Tesco Express was submitted. It's still a live application. It's got to go to the planning board at some time, but nobody knows when. That's why I keep getting an update from what
Why does anybody else?
I'm sorry, gentlemen. We're time limited here, Mr. Richardson. What will happen is we'll visit it later on in the agenda. If anyone who hasn't, I appreciate some of you might not have been to council meetings before. What will happen is that it's probably worth raising it with some of our RMBC members as well, and it's worth writing to the council or adding some points to us in writing later on.
Can I just have
Very quickly, Stuart.
I've written to, I've forgotten the lady's name now, the planning board. No, it was somebody else, but I asked the very same question, is how can you apply for a licence for a building that doesn't exist? Now, it appears you can, but the wording that came back, which I've only opened it today, the wording came back wasn't the best wording, so I'm going to rewrite back and ask them to clarify it, because, again, it may be a case they can do it, but it seems a bit odd that you can apply for a licence for a building that doesn't exist, because if we say, yes, we agree with the licence, what happens then if the planning application comes back and says it's for 1,000 people? The building is going to be big enough for 1,000 people. I mean, it's not as simple as that, but that's an example. So I will be writing back for more clarification. I think it's a topsy-turvy way of doing things. So
Well, just that you can apply, there's a planning application and you can apply for a licence for that building, whether it's been granted planning permission or not. It's not a very good way of doing it on their behalf, but what they're doing is covering all the bases. If they get a licence and application back, then that counts in their favour.
Okay, next question.
You said one more thing. We were all due into how that application was made. It was made for a restaurant.
Yeah.
It has to be exactly the same as the Tesco store. I think this has got...
I'm sorry, gentlemen. I'm going to have to stop that discussion there because otherwise we'll run over. Yeah, fire away.
Regarding my allotment.
Brilliant.
Oh, right. Well, on the 20th of April, I wrote a letter to Anna, stating I wasn't paying my rent for the allotment until this was settled.
Sorry, is this about planning?
No.
No. Anybody else have any other questions about planning before we resume? Sorry, Hilary.
Can I just say, will you be keeping us up to date as to when the letters of objection with the timeline can be submitted?
In regard of what?
Well,
The application closed last year, but all the objections are still lodged with RMBC. And if there's another application comes in, I've been informed by the planning officer dealing with it, that those objections that were lodged are still valid. So there's 60 plus applications on the website from individuals, and there was a 2,500 signature petition that we delivered to Riverside House in 2015, and that's still...
but the licence issue is still live.
is it Matthew Pett?
It is Matthew Pett.
Yeah. And is this why there isn't another, as generally is thought, that there's another, what do you call it, petition?
That's I don't know what's happened with that. It's not my doing that petition that's apparently said.
Your name?
I know my name's on it, but I've got nothing to do. I assure you, all the information that's gone into the Borough Council is still valid, and what they've done, I'm sorry about this, Bill, what they've done is Tesco have kept putting bits in. They've had queries raised by environmental health planners, but they keep sending them out, they keep sending them back, but it's in a diligent fashion that they're required to the local authority, so they're just taking time. So I will keep everybody posted on it so we know where we are.
Why you answer the lady's question?
I'm sorry, we have to be mindful. Those of us that haven't been to meetings before, occasionally the public session, or should I say more often than not, the public session descends a little into chaos. So we just need to make sure that one person speaks at a time. Kevin, planning?
Yeah, no disrespect to Clyde, but I think for a councillor who didn't abstain his vote against the first application by Tesco was protecting his own rather than Clyde abstaining his vote against Tesco.
Who was the borough council?
Jonathan's with it.
No. Well, no. Jonathan's got a problem because Jonathan's on the planning board.
Yeah.
And it's not declared an
Obviously,
Kevin, can I just say, nobody objected to the first application because the restaurant we thought was a good addition to the pub. As Mr. Keating said, we were all conned by that, but we
still voted, you abstained.
and we supported the application for the restaurant extension.
Rustication.
Rustication.
What we did.
Thank you. And on to the next section of the agenda, to allow one question per elector of the civil parish of Anston on a topic for which the parish council has responsibility or which affects the parish allotments. Fire away.
Oh, sorry, on the 20th of April, I haven't paid my rent because of the damage that the council workers did on my lot. Can you give me an answer why? Haven't been seen.
Okay, so that's, you're saying that damage was done to your allotment by the council ground workers.
Money was put in the hedge.
Stuart?
Just to come in, you wrote a letter. You wrote a letter about that, didn't you?
Yes,
Yes, that's what he said.
Right. Did we receive that letter?
It's on the agenda.
But what action did we take?
Anna's asking for, so Anna's action is to go and talk to members of staff to get comments from members of staff. So that's where we are at the moment.
Can I just come back in again?
Yes?
The date of 20th of April was mentioned.
Yes.
Was that correct?
Yes.
Now in June.
It's on the agenda. It was on the last one as well.
Did we get to it on the agenda?
No.
It is on the agenda, so we'll see if we can get to it. Part of the problem is that the council gets caught up. The public sessions last longer than they should, and then councillors, on getting to items on the agenda, debate for quite a long time. So we don't get to all of the items on the agenda, but Anna is chasing comments from members of staff. Next question, Hilary.
Yes, well, following on from what Gordon has said and what information you've just given out, why are the council workers cutting hedges during the bird feeding season? Yes, you said it was April.
Yes, when I wrote the letter.
Right. Well then,
But it was during the winter.
right, I apologise.
Withdraw the question?
Yes.
Okay. Withdrawn. Any other questions, Kevin?
Can you tell me what action you're going to take this pond out of water, which is an absolute disgrace?
Sorry, can you shout up a little
Can
bit?
you tell us what actions, I asked you about this months ago, about Brook Walk. The actual Brook Walk itself is looking an absolute disgrace. So is pond, the pond is, the trees are not being done anymore like they used to, when you used to walk down there and feel comfortable walking because you could see from one end to the other. So now it's just getting overgrown. And it weren't that long ago that you were telling us that your staff hadn't got enough work to do. But
We've never said that.
Philip, I believe that you and Siobhan have corresponded about this.
Nothing to do with what Kevin's talking about. It was the pond part of it and whether to change that. I think this is just general maintenance has declined to an unacceptable standard by the sound of it. Needs looking into.
Can I just have a caveat to that? It's a historic thing. It's not just happened recently. Over the years, it was never the best maintained. Sorry. I mean, it's historic. It's over the years. It was never maintained in the best of conditions anyway. It takes a lot of maintenance and a lot of time. But if we have a pond which is there for local wildlife and the children, we should be maintaining it.
What we'll do is, again, we'll follow that up with the, well, Siobhan would be the best person, wouldn't she?
The clerk follows it up.
I wasn't
and
the
instructs-
impression-
and
I wasn't
instructs the
the-
senior administrator where required.
Sorry?
The clerk follows it up and he instructs the senior administrator where required. Sorry, I keep forgetting it's...
The clerk to instruct the senior administrator to follow it up and check on the
That's not
condition.
me telling, that's what should be happening.
I was under the impression that it was what you were discussing with Siobhan, Philip, but it's a separate
It
problem.
seems it's a separate issue this year. But I have to say, I think that you mentioned bringing it up 3 months ago. I don't recollect that about the condition of the pond, maybe.
Yeah, rock pond, but now trees are growing, this is what I'm saying. We're trying to use it to a nice and comfortable and pleasant for women to walk out. You can see people from one end to the other.
Nothing to do with contracts being taken off people, or is it?
Yeah, it's going down. Very impressive, really.
Of course it'll go downhill because the contract does not
So
do
our
it.
action is to check that up. Feel free.
It was just a question, who used to look after it? And why has it gone into disrepair? Because it used to be quite nice down there.
Can you use the microphone?
On the Brook Walk, it used to be really nice. And but who used to maintain it at the time when it was really quite nice? What's changed
Who are you
recently?
working with?
That's
Right, any other questions?
Right, I'll make a comment if I can, Chair.
Feel free.
Right, let me say this Brook Walk issue has now been brought up twice in 2 separate meetings by Mr Kavanagh. Mr Kavanagh. My personal opinion is he's making, I believe, unfounded comments about the state of Brook Walk, about the paths not being done. Right, so let me have my say. You've had your say, Mr Kavanagh. You've had your say. Let me speak, please. You ask him to be quiet, otherwise I'm going to stand up again.
Can we try to keep this particular public session reasonably civil?
Right. So,
We managed-
so my,
Personal comments against people.
right.
No personal comments, please.
Right, I'll make whatever comments I want because I'm under a code of conduct. So I'm under a code of conduct, and if there's a problem, they can send me to the standards board. I will not sit here taking comment from members of the public who I believe.
Taking personal
Right.
comments from people.
I didn't ask him to stop interrupting while I'm speaking.
Okay, Stuart. Kevin, can you?
Stop them, Drew, shut, John.
Okay, I'm asking you to stop, Kevin, and Stuart. I'm asking
No, what you're doing is you're stopping my right to speak, and I will not be stopped by members of the public in order to give an opinion. Just because they don't like the answer doesn't mean I don't have to be quiet.
No, you don't have to be quiet, but you can.
Right.
There's a way of
In that
saying
case,
it,
I'll
so
carry
you
on
can
then.
Say that in your opinion.
Right, in my opinion,
In your opinion.
there's
as a
accusations.
council-
There's accusations being made that certain parts of this village are not being kept up to the standard because we've taken work off a certain contractor who happens to be a very good friend of Mr Kavanagh's. So that's my opinion, and I'm entitled to pass it without interruption.
Any further questions from members?
I said nothing about. I was speaking to you, Mr Kavanagh, nobody else. Get a grip, Drew.
Further questions? I'm not going to allow this one to continue.
Well, I'm gonna
Further
stand up.
questions? Nick?
About the length of this agenda, it looks to me a little bit longer than the one in Brussels that we discussed before. Given the problems 2 years ago when this council took over with an agenda that big, is there any steps in place to stop that happening? Because it looks to me at least as long as the ones that we have an awful lot of problems with to clear up. Now it's starting over again.
As chairman, I'd like to answer that if that's possible, Mick. I think the public session and the disruption that we've just seen to the public session, actually this one has been much better than those in the past. Extends, it runs on We have arguments between councillors and members of the public.
No, we don't. I'm
in-
going to stop you there, Chair, because we don't have arguments between councillors and members of the public. We have certain individual members of the public who continually disrupt this meeting, so we don't need excuses of what's going on. We're on camera and everybody can see what's going on.
We also have interruptions from members of the public.
Yeah.
Councillors also find it very difficult to use procedural motions to move on debate, and the council does debate at length. Anybody want to add to that one? Okay, thank you. Next question. Are out of questions? We got through that one reasonably well. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Just before we start the meeting itself, Clive wants to give us a very quick update.
Yeah, it's, for those that are interested, it's regarding the local plan, and just an update on where we are. The timetable for the local plan has now gone back. It's gone back to summer autumn 2018 before it was in front of full council at Rotherham for adoption on the modification. So this new consultation from June of this year, July, August, October, there are further hearing sessions with the inspector. End of 2017, Council's Cabinet considers the main modifications for public consultation. Early 2018, Council Office carried out public consultation on proposed main modifications for a 6-week period. Spring 2018, Inspector issues final report to the Council. Summer 2018, Council's Cabinet considers recommendations to adopt the plan as modified, and summer autumn 2018 it goes in front of the full Council for adoption. So that's where we are at the moment. It's gone back till later of next year. If there are any other changes, then again I'll bring it back and let people know where we are.
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
These consultations, are they coming out to the public, or do we have
They
to
will,
go?
but they'll only be relevant to the areas where there are main modifications taking place, which is Watton-Dearn, Brampton Bealow, West Melton, where they're proposing to move more
So
housing.
we're going to have no chance then of further objections to the
Not here,
travel
because
side?
these published these modifications, there aren't any for this area. It's where they're considering building additional housing and industrial development. So where those areas are is where there'll be further public
So
consultation.
the only way that the council can make any notifications then on the travellers' site down at bottom of Dog Kennel Lane is going to be when we get a planning application.
Well, if that goes through next year, then there'll be the disposal of the site, I presume, if anybody wants to take it on. But then there'll be another procedure after the plan's adopted. So that's where we are at the moment. So we can't do any more on the Gypsy and Travellers site. That's been looks like the planning inspectors
Because that site
approved
needs to
that,
be
unless there's another site comes to the surface in that meantime.
The caravan numbers issue, which was debated quite at length, has now increased in this area because they now have caravans parked up at Lawton. So that I think that should be brought to the inspector's attention, that they've changed the goalposts.
That would have to be done through the planning department to the inspector, because he doesn't deal direct as such. You have to go through the plan. So it may be that when there's a further consultation, I'll find out when his hearings are and if there's any chance of anything else. But I'll get updated anyway on what's happening.
If you get a chance, and we can get back to sit in front of him.
I'll try and take every chance I can to get that.
I'll come with you on that
particular
one.
issue.
If we get a chance to speak to the inspector on that, I'll come with you.
Can we move
Sorry.
on to the apologies for
Great. So we'll start the meeting. 7:32. Apologies for absence. We have apologies in the book from Councillors Vernon, Ireland and Bentley. Proposal and seconder for those. Thank you very much. All those in favour? Thank you. Item 2, to disclose DPI of personal interest in any item to be discussed. So we'll take Jonathan and then Stuart.
I've got section 7, which is planning, because I'm on the planning board. 9.11, because that regards myself. I'm not sure at 9.12, because it's to discuss tree planting on Rockford Meadows. I'm not sure that's for future tree planting or it's not really clear. This is any clarification on that.
9.6, you know.
9.2.
9.12.
We'll take it, shall we take those as we get to them?
And, well, I'll declare interest on 9.12 as well.
Okay.
9.14, because it's to do with school crossings, that's to do with the borough. And the last one is 10.9, because from the Anson Festival Day, so we're on the committee for that.
10.9.
And the last one is, we may not get to it, is 10.26, regarding speaking on behalf of the parish at the planning board, because on the planning board. It may be inappropriate to discuss that.
Stuart?
I'm going to declare an interest in the letter from Sir Kevin Barron, because it may be something to do with a
10.7.
complaint. It's 10.7. So personal. But I'm still going to speak on it.
Actually, that one, as and when we get to it, we might need some other declarations of interest there, but we'll take them this week. We'll take them as we get going. Okay. Any others? To identify items which the press and public may be excluded. So we want to take those as we go. DVS, do you want to give us a list, Stuart?
Right. 9.3, yeah, contractual. 9.4, contractual. Just let me just check these as we go through this and double check. 9.3 is contractual. 9.4 is possibly contractual. 9.5 is a tender document, so it's contractual. 9.6 is to do with events management company, so it's probably contractual. 10.4, bear with me a second. 10.4 is again contractual. 10.24, let me get to it, which is again contractual, and I've got down here 10.25, well, I'll take that as, I'll leave that to the discretion of the councillors when we get to it.
Shall we take those as we get to them?
I would take 9.6.
Sorry, can you use the microphone?
I would take 9.6.
9.6?
Just because I think with it showing as managing line, I don't think they've been.
We'll take them as we get to them. We'll vote on them as we get to them.
Well, the reason I'm saying it because it could lead to an eventual contract if that's the way they want to go.
Okay.
It's business, it's contracts. We should be discussing contracts in the
We've got those
session.
flagged, and we can vote on them as we get to them. To confirm the minutes of the parish council meetings held on Monday, the 15th.
Complaining they can't hear.
Can I remind members to use the microphones if possible? Thank you. And the chairman to speak up. I have got it clipped here. No, that's right. It's the cost of replacing them, isn't it? So, minutes. I will try and speak up as much as I can, Christine. Minutes. 15th of May.
Right.
Page 1. Stuart.
Right. 00217, declaration of office. Did you sign the declaration of office?
I did.
You didn't do it at the meeting?
Yeah, I did it at the meeting.
Well, it says here, the declaration of office to be signed as soon as practical, but before next ordinary meeting of the council.
Yeah, I did,
So what?
Did it in the meeting.
Right, so that shouldn't be on there, because you did it. We'll leave it at that. We'll leave it at that.
Alright, I did it. We closed the meeting. No, I was at the meeting.
Yeah. Well, anyway, let's just clarify. Have you signed the declaration?
I have signed the declaration.
Okay,
of office.
we'll leave it at that then.
Yeah, I was definitely there, Miles. I signed
We'll
it.
leave it at that.
I presided over the meeting where I was re-elected.
Can I just raise an issue on that 0017 and 0017? Could I just have, where it says for a second term, could I have that amended to the year 2718? Because I don't think it's the correct term.
Where are we?
For second term. Unless you put the notion.
I doubt very much.
So it
trumps maybe.
If we do it, would be the council year.
To amend it for the new year.
The council year 27-18, that would apply to 17 and we will also see the 17 vice chairman. Sounds like you're
Anything else on page 1? Page 2. Sorry, Dan.
I wasn't at the meeting. Can I ask, it says approve annual board meeting, was there a date for that?
No.
It's just a question.
Yeah, no date.
No, what?
Page 3. Stuart.
Yeah, top of the page, we've got all the public session in there. The public session does not form part of the minutes. So what's it there for? We never have put the public session on the minutes because it doesn't. We adjourn the meeting to do the public session, so it shouldn't be part of the minutes.
Which minuted item are you referring to, Stuart?
027117. When we approved the annual quiz night, then there's 2 paragraphs of writing there.
Public session was extended by 5 minutes. Questions are asked by members.
And the one above it, we don't put public session in because it's not part of the minutes, because we adjourn the meeting. We never have done.
The minutes do say that the meeting was adjourned.
No, you've missed the point. When we adjourn the
Do
meeting...
you want to make a proposal, Stuart?
No, I don't need to make a proposal. It's something we have never included the public session in the minutes because we adjourn the meeting. It's not part of the minutes, so it shouldn't be even recorded in the minutes.
Notes on the public session have always been made out on a separate sheet of paper and pinned behind the minutes. But Stuart's right, they're not.
Would somebody like to propose to take
we,
this section out? And
we don't. Well, we can leave it in now because it's done. Just saying in future, it doesn't need to be included because it's not part of the minutes.
Yeah, can I look at 03117, please? List 17, the planning applications, it says that Michael Brazil will send out weekly lists. This week I have received double the amount. One from Michael and similar from Anna.
Yeah.
And it actually says there that Michael will be the person who will be sending them out. Consequently, it took me all day to go through my email.
also.
So what was that then?
Sorry?
What was that then? What's the answer to it? Because I was the same. I had to go through 3 or 4 lots of plan applications.
Anna was under the impression that she was also to send.
No, we had a discussion on this and it was quite clear because the discussion revolved around the fact that we was getting either no planning or we was getting double, and that's why we resolved to ask Michael to do it. Can I just?
Michael's the only person to send these out.
If Michael's willing to do it, I think he agreed. Right. Can I ask about same one? 03117. It says twice. It says that I left the room and returned. I don't think I did.
Oh, you did?
What did I leave for?
You could tell me to come back in the room. That's
Right.
the time. Stuart, what happened next?
Yeah, but I didn't leave the meeting, so that needs to be deleted. I was only out less than about 2 seconds. Right, so I'm proposing. I didn't leave the meeting.
When people leave.
Right.
So the
proposal.
Whenever any councillor leaves the room.
I wasn't out of the room that long.
Vote in the time that the person's out. It's procedural.
Right. So I'm proposing that after it says Island JC and that the word Thornton left the room at 8:40 be deleted, and the words after Councillor Bowers and that the words Thornton returned 5 minutes later be deleted, because it wasn't even 5 minutes.
It was a period of a few minutes.
No, it wasn't. I walked out, he was in the loo, and I just pushed my head through. No, it does matter, because it's inaccurate recording.
Doesn't matter. Let's get on with the damn meeting.
Don't shout at me, because that's against the code of conduct. Right? This is what's,
Ladies and gentlemen,
this
can
is what's
we
happening
move
around this
to-
table.
This is 7:45. Can
This,
we move on,
this,
please, Chairman?
you're voting for a true record of events, and it didn't happen.
As you left the room.
Right, I've made,
Right, ladies and gentlemen,
Right.
Diane, and
I've
then
made
we'll
a,
go to the
pro-
vote.
I've made a proposal.
Okay, Diane.
We're arguing, can we please accept these minutes with minor objections?
Does anyone second Stuart's proposal? Christine, all those in favour of Stuart's proposal? It falls. Right, somebody proposed that we...
Excuse me, we haven't, just going to start playing games. Right, we haven't done page 4 yet.
Page 4.
Right, page 4 again. We've resolved to ask members of the public questions. It's been recorded again. It's not part of the agenda. We seem to be struggling with doing basic things like agendas.
The public session ended at 9:10. The council resolved to go into confidential session at 9:10.
If you don't understand what I'm talking about, I'll withdraw it because I'm wasting my breath.
Clive.
Yeah, on page 3 we've got 003317, which relates to the Gypsy and Traveller site at Dog Kennel. If you go over the page 03417 is a repeat basically of that, so can we delete? Yeah, so it's got two numbers but it's basically the same minute. Can we delete 034/17 and leave 03317 in? It's the same minute. I know one's draft over from an earlier meeting, but it just seems a bit...
Propose those meetings without suggested amendment? Seconded. All those in favour? Thank you.
That's the problem with stuff being carried over. These meetings you get doubled up. If we leave it in twice, it'll be confused. Even more.
Six, there are none. 7, to consider planning, licensing matters, transport issues and to receive reports.
Chairman.
So,
Okay.
sorry?
Obviously, we building.
I'm going to leave while we discuss it. On the standing order 87(1)C.
So, can I ask you then, why for the last 12 months or so you've never left the room before? When I've asked you for
So when
declarations of
that
interest,
discussion,
you've
the
done it.
council has left the
Yeah.
room.
Well, what I'm proving is that in the past his integrity is brought into question.
Can we
like
look at
it,
these
get up off the
planning
table.
licensing matters, please? List 19, there are none. List
You wanna
20.
condone these actions?
List 20, RB 2017-0576, a conservatory at 1 St James Avenue, Southampton. Any comments?
Neighbours and planners.
Neighbours and planners?
Yeah.
Proposal and seconder? All those in favour? Carried. RB 2017-0727, two-storey extension, 13 Ambleside Walk, Northampton.
Neighbours and planners.
Proposed, seconded, all those in favour? Thank you. RB 2017-0750, first front and side extension through Manor Farm.
Again, I think it's neighbours and planners out.
Proposer,
Anything that one.
seconder, all those in favour?
The conservation.
Okay, list 21 1. List 22, one dwelling house, 31 to 33 Rackford Road, RB 2017-0778. Clive.
Yeah, can I don't know whether council is aware that this area of land on Rackford Road backs onto, I think it's our bowling green and above there. Having had a look through it again this afternoon, my main concern is that it's an outline planning application, but I think that the other properties that were built in that area have affected the drainage and water and springs down into this area, and the application just states that water will be disposed of via soakaways. Well, that's not into any main drainage. If it's going into soakaways, it's just basically going into the ground. if it's at that height, then if it goes into the ground, it's going to make its way down the hillside there towards the bowling green and into the recreation ground.
Recommendations from to investigate.
Although I don't, it's not worth an objection because it's an outline planning application, but I think we should raise concerns that we are concerned about where the surface water will be disposed of at the end of the day, because I wouldn't like to think that it was going to soakaways and then washing down there, and then we've got a problem of somebody else is making higher up. So I think if we do that, we need to get it done because it closes the 20th, I think. We'll probably get a few days extension. Tomorrow it closes. That's the date on the planning list, but I'm sure if you're right, it's only a straightforward concerned about the disposal of surface water and its effect on the land below, which belongs to the parish council. As I say, if it's going into soakaways, it just finds its own way downhill. It's not like it's going into the main drain.
Can I just jump forward? Declare a personal interest.
Declaration of personal interest.
What do we need to do?
From Councillor Thornton.
Yeah, so it's really, that's the main issue.
So surface water disposal, and effectively we're saying that if it soaks away, it's going to run.
And we could also add in how the building will be retained from that lower level, because obviously it will involve some earthworks to get it, stop it sliding down the hill. If you do it to the end of the, well, yeah, if you can, then I'll tidy that one up. Okay.
Or can we just get it off tomorrow?
We can get it off tomorrow, I think. If you just
without an extension? Oh, yeah, okay.
I think if you send it day after on Wednesday, it'll be all right. You usually get a few days leeway. And just send it off. I'd say concerns about the retaining works to the dwelling if it goes ahead. We don't want to detach dwelling on the bowling green.
Can I just come back to 5? There's no one at the plan of
No.
the building, is there?
No, it's just an outline. Yeah.
You know, the height of it.
It's purely, cause I think planning permission it said was granted, I think, for the others.
Yeah.
And with this third plot, so all they're doing at the moment is just putting an outline planning application in. So if they put a full one in, you get full details. But as I say, it could be an issue.
Can you just read that back to us?
I've just got concern about the disposal of surface water and its effect on parish land if it runs down.
Yeah.
There's concerns about how will the building be retained, concerns regarding the retaining works to the dwelling if the plan goes ahead.
Yeah, that'll do.
Can I have a proposer and second for those? Thanks very much. All those in favour? Thank you. Okay. 0817, demolition of existing conservatory and outbuilding and erection of a 2-storey and rear storey rear extension, whatever that is, at 34A Crowgate.
Neighbours and planners, I think. I haven't got any.
Seconded by all those in favour? Thank you. And 230856, erection of detached garage, 25 Airport Way. Sorry?
Are they? I hope not.
I'm not sure where that one is.
Okay.
Well, if it is, it's there, but they'll have to get a decision. I've not seen it come to it. Yeah.
Neighbours and planners. Proposer and seconded for neighbours and planners, please, Miles, Clive. No, just slightly rare before. All those in favour? Thank you. Planning list 24 through today?
You're closer to it.
There's just one, RB 2017-0844. It's a single-storey rear extension, Main Street, Northampton.
Sorry. That microphone off?
Sorry, we couldn't hear you, sorry.
Okay.
Is that better?
Thank you.
It's planning application RB 2017-0844, and the description is a single-storey rear extension on Main Street, Northampton.
It's single-storey rear extension, Main Street, Northampton.
Yes, I just say it's in the conservation area, but it's at the rear of the dwelling. I think again it's down to planners and the conservation planning officer that will look at that. Yeah, Is it 59? 59 Main Street? No number?
Yeah.
59 Main Street. It's on the bend just past Chapel Rise. It's the one on the other side of the entrance to Peacock Lane. Yeah.
The list arrived. The list arrived.
Sorry, come out this
today.
afternoon.
So that's why it's not on here, but it arrived today.
It's on the back, so you won't see it.
Okay.
15.
Planners, anybody?
Yeah, there's
I know it's not on the agenda, but anybody wanting to object to it specifically?
can do so. Well, people can do it separately anyway. They don't have to have a parish council resolution. If you want to object, you can do it.
It's not actually on the agenda anyway, but I propose it. Neighbours and planners.
Yeah.
Second, all those in favour. Neighbours and planners for that one, ladies and gents. Show of hands.
Actually, I think you'd be better off missing this next one as well.
Right, okay.
Because we've got two other planning ones.
If you leave the room, they'll be recorded that you've left the meeting. No, we're going to play a game.
It will be recorded that he's left the meeting, and then it will be recorded that he comes back.
Right, so I'll argue it wasn't 5 minutes I was out of the building. So yeah, we'll start playing the game.
Can we move on to the letter from
Yes, please. Discuss or approve formal letter of complaint to RMBC regarding planning application for Harry Croft Quarry, Southampton. Clive?
Yeah, I put this forward because we finished talking.
Have we got that letter in here?
Yeah. It's as this one's been circulated, I think, anyway, from Matthew Temperton somewhere. What happened was the planning application for Harry Croft Quarry that the council objected to was scheduled for the 1st of June, but unfortunately we weren't told it was going to be on that date. I found out 2 days before, and I also objected as a borough councillor to certain things on it, and I asked for a right to speak, and I wasn't informed either, so I contacted the planning officer and asked for a deferment, which they weren't intending to give, but I think he spoke to the planning board chairman, and they decided to put it back until this Thursday, which is the 22nd. So it's basically the fact that there's a parish council, we did object. If you object and it goes to planning board, you should be contacted to ask if you want to speak at the planning board meeting. We weren't given that courtesy, we weren't informed it was going to the planning board on that date, and as such I think that we should actually write a letter of complaint from the parish council that we weren't informed, we were missed out, we'd done our duty, we'd put the objections into the things that we thought were relevant to it, and as I say, we weren't informed of it. So if we can't agree a sort of wording tonight, if people are happy to support that we do send a letter of complaining, not necessarily this week but in a couple of weeks, and I'll find out which is the best route to do it, but I think we need to register the fact that we weren't told about it, and it's unfair that we weren't consulted. So as I say, I would just like approval to put a letter together, or the clerk to reply to the planning department and just say we're disappointed the fact that we've not been informed about it.
You want that to come back to the next meeting, you better get it recorded or it won't come back.
Can we do that? Can we resolve that we write a letter of complaint? Does that letter have to come back? It's only going to say that we're extremely unhappy that we...
I don't think it needs to come back.
I don't think it needs to come back,
Are we
yeah.
discussing Harry Croft?
Yeah.
I was reading something else and wasn't right.
I'm not here for the next week in a bit, so...
Are we objecting as a council?
Yes, to the fact that we weren't notified of the planning board meeting when it was going to be discussed.
So are we
It was a right to
objecting?
speak. It was a right to speak.
Right.
And they didn't.
Well, they haven't discussed it yet, have they? The defence?
It's this Thursday.
Right.
It's been put back 3 weeks.
So are we discussing whether we're going to make an objection, or are we discussing
No.
we're going to make a
We're
complaint?
discussing whether Clive's authorised to write a letter complaining that we were.
Yeah, we put
Right.
we put an objection in. We
On
weren't.
behalf of the council?
Yeah, and we were on behalf of the council. Well, through the clerk, because it'd be sent by Anna. But the fact that we're complaining, that the fact that we weren't informed of the planning board meeting when it was due to be held.
Can I suggest what we do as a stop and a check, as it were, that you construct the letter, because you know what needs to go in it, and that we approve. If Clive constructs the letter, we will give Clive permission to send the letter after the chairman has read it through. And that way we have a stop, check and a balance on it, and there shouldn't be no problems with it.
Well, it will go from the clerk as on behalf of the parish council.
Seconded.
I'm just trying to...
All those in favour? Okay, that's carried.
I'll sort it out with that.
Right, we also, do we need to discuss as well whether we're going to object to Harry Croft?
Well, we have.
Right, in that case then, what grounds do we object on?
We objected on traffic.
Right,
Problems.
just bear with me, because I'm trying to get to another point on this.
There's a list somewhere in all this
Right,
paperwork.
is it the one that says something about triple SI sites? And
Yes,
stuff?
triple
Right.
SI traffic
Right,
problems.
can I
in
ask
the village.
Chair, that we bring item 1026 forward to this one now? We've asked if council...
I had actually got it before, after the
Yeah.
statutory items, but we can do it now.
Yeah. We're asking council if they'll authorise me to go to the planning meeting to speak, I think it's 3 minutes you're allowed, to speak on behalf of the council to object to the Harry Croft planning application based on the issues we discussed, but mainly traffic is the big issue about the danger of the slip road. So that's all we're asking for, is council to authorise me and go speak on their behalf.
No?
I hope you're not... Sorry, can I just have the mic while there's
Sorry.
The council objected not just on that, and as you're representing the council, therefore you should be objecting on all the other issues as well. Can I have that that assurance, please?
I wouldn't go to a meeting.
No, I'm just
object. Well, I'm just saying, I wouldn't go to a meeting and object on stuff that hasn't been approved by council.
That's fine. That's all I'm asking, Stuart. Thank you.
So, item 1026.
No, we need to vote on it.
That's proposed. Seconded.
Can I just say I'll
Yeah.
do it anyway?
Yeah, Clive's with me.
Are you seconding it as well?
Yeah.
Yes. All those in favour? Thanks very much.
Can I just say that the emphasis will be on the traffic, because I think that's the point that is the bigger issue, as it were.
Yeah,
yes,
but
I've
I
seen
think from residents who actually live near the site, it's not just traffic, it's the noise and the dirt and everything else.
It's the blasting and the dust.
If I just add one more bit, if you look at the planning, it's down on the agenda for Thursday. It is granted conditions there, but there are a lot of conditions that we've added with regard to blasting that's been limited.
Yeah,
There is
not
a
the
member who
weekend.
will be speaking, I think that was the Southampton who will be speaking about the residents. To take some action, there's lots of conditions that have been imposed,
Fine.
but I don't think the ones with regard to traffic going out on the A57 are stringent enough.
Fine.
And again, we're looking at the traffic lights in Southampton.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much.
I'll write the speech of Clive and send
So,
it to you.
Tesco Express, Woodsets Road, Northampton. Who would like to speak first? Phil?
Do you want me to...
Do you want to? I'll
You started or am I?
no, I'll put my four
Just
pens
finding
in.
his paper.
No, that's all right, I'm just finding the bits of paper. That's all. Do you want to go, Diane? You?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I found it very difficult to actually find the licence on the website. Consequently, I have written to Rotherham for the actual licence application. The licence application is for a lady who is living in London called Jane Beale. It is on behalf of Tesco's, and the licence application says for land off adjacent to the Cutler pub, because there's nothing on the licence that actually says the application that's been posted outside the pub as to what it was exactly for. On top of that, Having looked at the notices outside the pub, which should be displayed on pale blue paper, they are on pale blue paper, but they should be every 50 yards, and they're about every 50 feet. They are A4, so I have checked on that. I've also looked at the fact that it's cost them £315 to actually apply for this licence, and it is, as far as I'm aware of, one of the speculative licences, because they have not got planning permission as yet for the Tesco Express. They have put in this application as a speculative one. If they then get the licence, it would give them more clout for the actual building. Unfortunately, you can only object on 4 actual areas when you actually object to a planning licence, and you have to be specific when you do that. So that is my information that I've got.
Just a quick one.
Yeah.
Just a quick one. Dan's right on the last part about the on that email we've received. It did give specific issues where you could object. I would suggest, rather than objecting at this stage, that the council probably writes a letter to the licensing board asking for a delay in this application until the planning application's been sorted.
Can I come back on that?
Yeah.
The licence application cannot be delayed. It is statutorily 28 days. This has already been put to them, and they cannot move it. It will take place, the licensing application will, on the 20th of this month.
So are you saying then, just to clarify, are you saying that once an applicant puts an application for a licence, it has to be done and dusted in 28 days?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I've got a letter here
asking for a delay, not for an objection.
It says, unfortunately, the 28 deadline is set in law and there is no flexibility in relation to this. Yeah.
But you're not going to do
that. I've been trying to follow this, and I've had a fair amount of email correspondence with the licensing section at Rotherham, and the licensing officer has said that the planning and licensing processes are completely separate, and therefore it is not unlawful for a licence application to be submitted at the same time as an application for planning consent. It is, however, a risky strategy, as there remains a possibility that either application may be refused. The application for a premises licence will also be submitted to the planning department, and officers will have the opportunity to comment on the application, make representations regarding the hours of operation, etc. Any representations must relate to one or more of the licensing objectives, which I think has been circulated by me and whoever through Anna. And there are various other things. Now, I have followed this up because I was concerned that, like Diane, you can't find it on the website. You've got planning applications that are online that you can see, but the licensing applications only go on the week that they're arrived, and then there's nothing. That's the licence application out of the Rotherham Advertiser. So it's there for everybody. It's there for everybody to see. Yeah. So that's basically the idea, and it's set out there. So the date for objections closes tomorrow. I'm not sure when the next licensing board meets, but that's the statutory time limit. So any objections have to be into by tomorrow. I've got to take mine into Rotherham tomorrow because I'm not finished writing them out yet. I've had various other things to do. I know Councillor Graham submitted objections. If you put objections in, you're more than likely to be called in front of the licensing board to discuss the application and make your point. So I think from the parish council's point of view, I don't think we've got time now because we can't get it to them tomorrow. Because you've got to go through all the documentation and make sure it fits the right, what you've planned. But if Councillor Graham's put one in and I put one in, then we can count that on behalf of the parish council as well, since we're both on the parish council. So I'm upset. I'm more than upset. I'm really annoyed at the fact that we weren't sent this information till last week, which has given us no time. In fact, I raised it with Anna Andrew, and I raised it with the guy at Rotherham, and he said it's unfortunate, but it's by law. He said if some authorities or parish councils get an application in, they're able to convene an extraordinary meeting if it's a really important licensing application. We've not had time to do that for one thing or another, but as I say, we're out of time tomorrow, so I think it's important that we've got one in. I'll put another one in tomorrow. I suspect there may be other people around the area that have put applications in, But my point is, we've already got, including the Cutler, we've got 4 licensed premises within 200 yards of our premises that sell alcohol. We've got the post office on Rackford Road, post office on, well, was the post office on Nursery Road, MJM News at Quarry Lane, and of course the Cutler Public House, which is next door to it, which is not going to stop selling alcohol unless they shut it down. So I'll be making objections on those grounds and some others. So I think it's important we get that in. But also, again, I am on another group, a parish and town council working group, and I've got this issue agendaed and the one about planning, because we've had discussions with staff at RMBC, and we've asked that we kept informed of all these issues, and it's not happening. We've not been told about this. We weren't told about the planning board decision or meeting on Harrycroft, and I don't think it's good enough. As I said, we agreed with them that they would keep us in the loop. It's not happened. So we'll see what happens with this licensing application, but if I don't get any satisfaction, I'll come back to the parish council next month and we'll send an objection to the licensing board, because I don't think it's a very good system. You have to go into Rotherham to look at the full planning application unless you ask for it to be sent out, and it's not user friendly. In fact, it's designed in favour of the applicant for an alcohol licence, as far as I can see. So I think they need to do a major overhaul of their system. Licensing has been one of the areas where the commissioners were looking into this for taxes, etc., etc., and I think it's an area that they need to tighten up. So I'll be taking that up with the chair of the licensing board as and when I get the opportunity. So that's where we're.
Can I just bring Miles in and then back to Diane? And then
I think just to ask as well, what I think Clive kind of touched on it, I've got a feeling you might mention it now. What are the actual points you can do it? I know, because licensing I'm not familiar with. I am with like housing and things like that. Pull it up, click towards it. No, you pull the button up. There you go.
Right, that's it. Right, you can object on prevention of crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of public nuisance, and protection of children from harm, and those are the only 4 that you can actually object on. And then, having done that, you have to make a declaration that this is all the information is submitted is true and correct. And if anybody's still interested and can get it off tonight, it's to the licensing@rotherham.gov.uk.
But the crucial thing is you can submit it online, but you have to have a written submission delivered to them. So,
well, mine's gone.
But you have to send one in by post. You have to send a formal written one. You do it online, but that doesn't count, because you have to do it as a formal letter. So if you send just an online one.
Can you also, when you actually mention this, that unlike planning, where you can actually view previous applications, you cannot see other than current licensing applications online?
So it seems as though the system is designed is best, they're working the best way they can to prevent ordinary members of the public from making representations.
It's not user friendly.
It's rubbish, but it sounded it.
It is. That's a fairly good summation.
So, progress then, Chair.
Okay, so are we going to resolve anything under this?
Maybe leave it up to each
shall
other.
we,
Can I just say, unless we're going to put unless, will it not be too late then?
I don't think it can wait, can it, really?
No, I mean,
Unless we get something done tonight and got it off by first thing in the morning, what's going to happen?
but I'll bring this issue back regarding the Tesco Express, because I'm not sure when the next licensing board is in its power. But if I object to Councillor Graves or I object to you usually call the the application would be appointed.
Can I ask then that you come back with updates on the Tesco for the next meetings, also maybe an update on the results of your discussion in regards to applications for licences as well?
Yeah, well, that meeting I've got is on the 5th of July, so that's before the council meeting.
Yeah.
Just to Clive and Diane, because obviously you've gone into a lot of detail here, is there anything you need the council to do now, or to resolve now, that we haven't already resolved in the past?
Can we authorise, I mean, we know they've put objections in, but if they are called in front of the licensing board, I think it will be acceptable to allow them to speak in general terms on our behalf. That I think the objections they're objecting to as individuals, councillors, is approximately what we object to as a council. I'll leave that to your discretion.
I've never been to a licence before, so I don't know how it works. I think it's a bit cloak and dagger. Because if you go on the website, they've never really published decisions that are made. So it's trying to find out how it, and I'm sure how it works. I've been doing the council for 5 years.
Would it be useful if we resolved to allow the two of you to speak on the council's behalf? Is that what you're...
I'll propose that.
Yes.
If it comes to it, yeah.
Yep. Seconded, Phil. All those in favour? So you're authorised to speak on our behalf.
But I think what we will look to do is, the next week, we'll put on the agenda, again, send it on paper now, lack of information on that,
No, I haven't seen it. I get it most weeks. I haven't seen it.
Is it legally, it's got to be 4 points? Something, hasn't it? Yeah, 4 points.
Item 8, to authorise the sealing of documents, namely grants of rights of burial for the Anston burial ground. Shall I sign it after?
Good, I'll sign it. Go on.
So we just need 2 members to sign these. I don't mind.
I'll sign it.
Stuart.
You sign it.
Okay.
Gives it end at meeting. If I gives it now, I'll sign it now.
There you go. We'll do them now.
In this weather,
I've not left him. Be nice to him.
Have a proposer and seconder?
He's got sacked.
I propose it.
Seconder?
No, it's been
All those in favour?
Sign me down twice.
Authorised? So, let's wait for the clerk to sign those. We have got, while Anna's just signing those, we have got quite a few items from previous meetings, some to go into confidential. But we have got a few that I'd just like to prioritise on the agenda. There's one. Sorry? You went to what one? It is going to be long-winded. I'll try and pull.
Shouldn't be that
a
long.
couple
It's a
of
case
points
we have a real double, isn't it?
Clyde,
It's a discussion to have, isn't it?
True.
Unless
If
you
you bring the bonfire one, it's just a quick... Yeah.
Can we bring 10:16 up here? So this is to authorise the date of the bonfire.
Time.
Miles, do you
Quote.
want to talk to this one?
Was the quote in the pack? No.
Can you just use
Yeah.
the microphone? Sorry.
Just to double check that everyone's seen the quote. It's cheaper.
I haven't seen it.
It is cheaper than last year. Yeah, it's £1,000 cheaper than last year for the same thing.
I haven't got a copy.
Yes, same company. They probably paid too much last year. Okay, yeah, it's balancing out basically. It's just to approve. Basically, that date was agreed upon at the meeting because bonfire night this year is on a Sunday, which means we'll be paying Sunday prices. So we didn't want to do the same mistake we did last year. So we're doing it on the Saturday before, at the same time, and it's also cheaper. Yeah. It is preliminary booked, the firework people.
Can I just ask a question? Did we authorise that down payment for the money mentioned there?
They've classed the extra, the money, because it was in disrepute last time, they've classed that as the deposit for this year, basically.
They basically gave us £1,000 off to use the same same supplier. We haven't resolved, as far as I'm aware, to actually use a supplier or anything like that.
But it just works out better for us to use than this year.
So, did we get 3 quotes?
Yes,
last year.
I did. That was the cheapest.
This year. You're asking us to approve that sum again this year. So the question is, did we get 3 quotes?
We did, yes. That was the one. That was the cheapest brought to the meeting.
The public can't hear.
Could we use the microphones, please?
So three quotes were received. I did ask for 3 quotes. That was the cheapest of the 3 for the same.
So the process is this: is The bonfire group is a working group. Therefore, it has no powers to make any decisions. If you're getting 3 quotes from 3 different manufacturers or producers, the council needs to see all 3 quotes. You can't just make a decision to dismiss 2 votes in a working group.
I can bring those 2 quotes over. It would still be the same conclusion.
Right. The point I'm making is it should be here already. We're not following the rules again.
Can we separate this item into, we've got the date and time and then the quote, so can we take the date and time first? Because we need to, it's June, so we need to, regardless of the quotes, we need to set it on.
It's not so much, it's so we can confirm the actual people doing it.
Yeah.
That was the main thing. I can show people the quotes now. I do have the quotes on, it is on the phone, but I can show you those quotes.
They've been circulated by email, haven't they?
No. Only that one I will be on, that one has, but I have got 2 other quotes.
Members should see the quotes, they should see all 3 quotes. So are you happy to agree the date and time now?
Okay.
And to bring the quotes back to the next meeting of the council?
Yeah.
So can we agree that it's Saturday the 4th?
Can we agree what?
The time and
Saturday the 4th of November. Bonfire.
Miles is proposing Saturday the 4th.
Yeah.
Seconded. Thanks very much. All those in favour? Can I have a show of hands? It's carried. So
Start
if
date.
we've set the date
Time?
and the time, 7 p.m. Are we happy with 7 p.m?
Yep.
Yeah. Any objections? We'll not vote on the time as well. But are we happy? Any objections to 7
Can we
o'clock?
just confirm it's going to be the same location?
Yes, same location. It was discussed at length at the meeting, and it has come to conclusion it is still the best place.
Okay, but can you bring those quotes back?
Well, you could email them round to everybody in
Yeah, I can do
advance,
that as well.
and if there's any comments.
Are there any others that people? I mean, there's one with about
have a look.
steam rally, which is.
Can I suggest that we go through them?
Sorry, Stuart, I was speaking. There was one about the steam rally. The chair was speaking, Stuart.
Absolutely.
There was one about the steam rally, but because it's contractual, it probably needs to go into confidential session.
But what I was going to suggest, Chair, now you finish speaking.
Yeah.
What I was suggest is, if we go through the stuff in the order they are, because we're having problems where there's stuff on here that's 2 or 3 months old. And every time we bring things forward, all right, there's occasions when it does need to be urgent, but we should be going strictly in order every meeting to get the backlog finished.
Okay. Anybody else want to propose anything there? Okay. So, we will take item 9.1 to discuss and approve the reduction in the number of councillors sitting on committees. Clyde?
Bring this up on yourself.
Yeah, I forgot.
Your argument was that it's unworkable.
Yeah, the fact is that my view was that if you get in, and this is not cutting anybody out of the equation because we discussed it, and any decisions made other than probably staffing committee have to come back, and all the minutes are seen, so councillors have the opportunity to raise issues if they're not happy with anything. My view was that if we, as it stands at the moment, I don't think, and I know I've emailed you about this, I think the grants committee can be rolled into another committee meeting like we used to do it, because last year we had 2 grants meetings and we seemed to be able to sync with everybody that was applying for grants. We were granting them after they'd had them or whatever, and I think it was total confusion. So I'd like to go back to the position, and I know we've got the working document that we can refer to all the time, but I would like to see that as and when we get grants through that say want some money by September, that we don't wait until October to have a meeting of the grants committee when we've got about 5 or 6, because we're working in hindsight. Nobody knows what's happening, so I think we should dispense with them a bit more quickly. If people apply for the grant and they're saying when they want it, then I see no reason why it can't come back to a full committee, either finance or council, just for us to agree. We've got the working protocol for how it should operate. So to me, it's just a rolling thing. As we get one in, we discuss it, dispense with it, and then that's sorted out. Not having I think Diane was on one of these meetings last year. We got totally confused about the grants. Some have been there months,
and they didn't know what you know, they weren't able to organise things because they weren't sure they were actually going to get any money through. And I think it's better that we tell them sooner rather than later, and you know, allow things to get back on track. So that would be one I would sort of take out of the equation. I'm not quite sure what people's views are on these others, but I know we said that facilities and asset management would be a working group, which means we can meet as and when. We don't need formal notification from the clerk, all the paperwork that goes with it, because it's only going to be a working group. Notes come back to full council for approval, so there's always checks and balances. But it's just trying to get things back on track at the moment. We're not, you know, I think people aren't wanting to come to meetings because they can see them being that long and onerous. And if it's a full committee, I think people agree staffing committee has to be run that way, and the finance committee, but I'm not sure of some of the others. Maybe the open spaces, but some of the others don't need. I mean, we've got one there, working practices review subcommittee. I don't know, is that still...
Is that from the staffing?
Yeah, it must be. Is it still... It's not operational, is it?
That went defunct because we couldn't get any answers and questions. Well, we can bring that on the staff.
So we can look at that under that one, can't we? It's just trying to streamline things a bit. I know everybody wanted to have input on every committee that they could, but I think all it's done is we've stagnated. We've not moved forward on things, and we need to be able to agree things in smaller group meetings, bring it out to the council, and if it's a good idea, sell it. If council don't accept it, well, then that's fine. It's democracy. That's what it's all about. But I don't think we should be doing full committees with all the paperwork and, you know, 10 days before, and if you don't have this on the agenda, etc., etc. I think they should be a bit more ad hoc and a bit more flexible. At the moment, we're not flexible. We're not responding to what we want to do and what people want us to do.
Can I come in and then Stuart and then Diane? So I think I agree, Clive, that we need to reduce the numbers of committee meetings that we have to ease the workload on the office staff. I think we need to reduce the workload on ourselves and on the office staff, particularly the clerk and the senior administrator and the ground staff in delivering the agendas as well. And the number of staff, particularly the staffing committee, having all members of the council on staffing committee discussing what are sometimes actually quite sensitive issues is quite challenging. I disagree with Clive on one point about the grants. I think it's a very good idea to roll the grants committee into, say, for example, the finance committee. But we specifically implemented a policy that said that we would have a pot of funds that we would then allocate, we would spend from, to revert back to spending at each meeting would undo some of that work.
We got 4 or 5 grants rather than organise just a one-off meeting, because we have a finance meeting twice a month, or we can make it so we can have the agenda twice a month. It would be easier to pick it up and keep it moving rather than sit there for months and people saying I've not had a response from the parish council, which is what was one of the issues raised at the parish meeting, that we do respond to people. We tell them whether they've got a grant or not or whatever, but not leave them hanging.
Go Stuart,
Sorry.
and Christine.
Just try and be quick. Could just remind everybody the reason why we converted all these into committees originally. The reason was because we sat around this table and none of us could decide who was going to go on what committee. We were squabbling, we was arguing. It was quite unruly. And I came up with the idea is put everybody on with the exception of one, etc. And I knew when I made that proposal that everybody wouldn't turn up for the meetings. That's why I explained to Ben, who was the, should we say, the reserve, that he could attend the meetings and he would be on there most of the time. It's worked quite well. I agree with Clive, maybe we could cut 1 or 2 down. There's the working group for the asset manager, that's a working group. Bonfire's a working group. The budget committee, I think we've already proved that has to stay as a committee, because it failed miserably when we changed it to a proper full council meeting. Burial grounds a working group. Finance committee, we've got to have a committee because it involves expenditure. The grants committee, I think we could look at keeping the rules that we originally said about when we had the meetings in the grants committee meetings. But what we would do is bring them inside a finance meeting and have a meeting in a meeting, as it were. So I agree with that. Open Spaces Committee, I think that should be put back, into what I call full council. It's only met twice in 3 years, 2 or 3 years. So if there's an issue that involves the woods or the fields, we're quite able to discuss it round this table. It's not going to be put an onerous strain, because most of the stuff can be decided here. Staffing committee, by virtue of what it does, and it has to stay, and the working practice review. I would suggest, rather than reduce the number of councillors, Clive, I'd say leave it as it is, because it's the same ones turning up every time anyway.
Diana and then Christine, and then can we take...
Sorry.
What I propose to do is take one at a time and decide which...
Sorry. If I am correct, the actual arrangements for the grants committee says that applications are put in twice a year. And consequently, if they're put in twice a year, there is a deadline for those dates, and it should only be meeting twice a year to look at those grants. As for the budget, last year we actually went over the budget because we didn't actually look at what we were allocating to various groups, and we went over that budget. And I can see that if we don't have 2 meetings and it's brought to every meeting, then we will also go over the budget unless somebody keeps a very close tab on it.
We didn't go... I don't understand that. We didn't go over the budget.
We did. We came over budget for the
grants.
For the grants. For the grants, we came over budget. There was a certain amount set on one side. Even with 2 meetings, we actually came over budget.
I thought you meant the whole budget. Yeah, you're right. The grants did go over.
Christine?
Could you explain to me, Drew, what happened to the grants committee? I came to the first one, where you wrote a policy, and then somewhere down the line, the grants applications were just coming back to the council. So, can anybody tell me what actually happened to the grants committee?
To the best of my knowledge, what happened to the grants committee is that I supplied a grant form to the office, and that went missing. I think Philip has also recently supplied a form, so we've never actually got to the stage of issuing the policy.
So it wasn't implemented?
So it basically wasn't implemented.
Right, and who would be responsible for that?
That would be Siobhan.
Can you shout up?
That would be the senior administrator.
Right. Would it be acceptable to the councillors to implement the same and see that it's carried out this time?
Okay, I will action that through the clerk.
If the council agrees.
Well, the council already agreed, it's just something that hasn't been properly implemented.
I'm going to... Yeah.
Can I just give you an example? I've had some correspondence from a group in the village wanting some financial assistance through my community leadership funds, like Jonathan has his. They've applied because they're obviously not aware of the new grants system that we've got up, and then that's just been explained.
We haven't got a new grants system.
Well, we have, but it's in deep freeze. No, it's not. It's not being. What I'm saying is, it's not being published. People aren't aware of it. There is one there, but groups aren't aware of it.
But it's not working.
No, I'm not disagreeing.
Let us speak.
If you just let me finish. What I'm saying is, somebody's contacted me last week, and they want a grant for an event in September, and I advised them to apply to the parish council for this grant to put reasons for. Now, basically, what they've been informed is that there won't be another meeting of the grants committee until October. Well, that's no good for somebody that's wanting some financial assistance in September, because it means unless they're finding funding from somewhere else, they're looking from the council, it's not going to go ahead. So that's my point, that if we've got a system, but apparently it's not in place. If people aren't aware of it, if they'd have known, and they'd have known in March, April this year, they could have put an application in now, and it perhaps have been sorted. But if you're not having a grants meeting until October, anybody that wants an event between now and then, they're not going to get it looked at, are they? They're not going to get the financial assistance that they're looking for. So we're sort of out of sync. We're not, people are wanting information. We've not got another meeting arranged for, I don't know. I can't remember the last one. Earlier this year, last year. So,
It sounds to me like another admin failure.
I mean, yeah, well, I'm going to help them out, but I've told them to come back and still apply to the parish council, because I think we should be the first port of call for them to try and get that money.
Well, by the time it gets onto the agenda and comes up, will have missed it
They'll
anyway.
be too late, and so the event's either cancelled that's for the benefit of kids in the village, and it's not benefiting anybody.
Would it be better if people put in a grant application and then a few people could meet
I
response
don't really
to
know
that?
the best way, Chris, because if
it goes on to a council meeting, it's going to be months before we get round to it.
If they don't know the system, then they can't do it.
No.
Sorry.
We have a policy that is
That we've agreed.
approved and agreed by the council. If anybody wants to change that, it needs to go on the agenda. Yours.
Right,
I can promise you, Chris, that I'll
gonna
take
try
this
and-
up with Siobhan and
I'll
I'll
try and-
make sure that she's in possession of
Well, you never
I don't think the policy's
I'm
right.
gonna,
It's just-
I'm gonna try and make a couple of proposals to move on. So my proposal is that the grants committee be now part of the finance committee, and that the finance committee meets twice a year on the previously agreed days in order to discuss grants. That's discuss and allocate grants. That's the first part. And the second part is that the council send a letter out to every single group we know of who's applied, explaining the new system. That's two proposals.
all those in favour.
Can we not speak on that?
Yes, if you'd like to speak.
Well, I can't see that that's going to work any better than the present system, Stuart. If you've got to wait for the committee, or whatever you call it, to meet, it's going to be past the deadline.
It's one of them things.
Yeah, that's what we had before.
Jonathan.
Right, it's quite a good idea,
No,
but
not
there's one
working,
thing
is
that's always on our agendas every meeting is item 6, which is to consider approved grants. So if there are any grants that are urgent, we can use that
You can
section.
use that, you can
So
use...
there's no real... So yeah, meet twice a year, it's fine.
Can I just...
If it's something that's urgent and time bound, we can discuss it in a meeting.
Right, can I just come back on that? Is that the reason it's at number 6 is because the system we adopted failed miserably, and that's why it was put in at number 6, so we could get the grants approved.
Okay, can we take the vote again? So we can retain any, do you want to amend to say that anything urgent can come to the agenda for item 6?
Well, do we know what the dates are for the meeting?
We haven't set
There's
anything.
no-
Set
there's
them.
No, I said, as previously set, we set some dates when the grant committee would meet. I think one of them was October, I can't remember.
Well, you've got that other one 6 months after that, then,
Yeah,
which is...
so... Right, what I'm trying to say is, so what happens now is, if we roll the committee into the finance committee, whenever we agree the next deadline, which I thought was September, October, on that finance meeting in that month, we will discuss grants, and then we'll discuss the following month 6 months later, and in the meantime, everybody will have had a letter to say, put your grants in.
But if it's time sensitive, like Jonathan says, we can use item 6. It gives us that
Well,
power to decide them then, doesn't it?
Yeah, from now till, say, September, it can be done as an agenda item.
We can do it
if
on
it's
that,
urgent.
can't we?
If it's urgent, yeah.
It's just to process them, if we've got any that
We see,
relate to later
I
in
know
the
we're
year.
going on a bit, but part of this new, so-called new system I was looking at, it doesn't tie in with people putting grants in for items quickly. It's a case of they're going to have to justify what they're doing. It's not a case of just putting a letter in. They're going to have to justify what they're doing. So we can suck it and see what happens.
John.
Could I make an amendment to that? Same as I said before, to keep section 6 to cover any urgent items that are time bound.
Are you happy to accept that amendment?
Yeah, because it's not just tag it on the end of what's
just keep-
already there. It
just
doesn't
keep-
make the
Can
difference.
we take a vote on the, can we just second this again, Miles? Can we take a vote on that one again, please? So it's exactly as before, but with the amendment from John.
And the second proposal was to
So
send a
that deals
letter.
with that committee?
No, the second proposal was to send a letter out to all the...
Yeah.
I think we
So-
need to do that, don't we?
So the second proposal is to send a letter to all past, not all, within reason, to all the groups that have had grants before, explaining the new system.
as soon as possible.
Yeah, I think we need to send that as soon as possible. don't we?
Colin, and then Miles.
Just a very quick word on this. I'll take Jonathan's point about item 6. But in the budget meeting, we set a limit on the amount of cash or time and effort we will give as grants. If, come March, we have given away or granted that allocation, and something comes in June, what do we do?
We either agree to increase it or waive it and
But we have
keep it
budgeted
next
for
year.
But we need to work within that budget, don't we?
Yeah, either work
think-
in the budget or it comes out of contingency.
I think that's an excellent point. It is right.
You
But
can't
what
you can't just say, oh, well, yeah, we'll give them all the credit.
could I
I
suggest?
don't think
What,
we're suggesting that.
could I suggest what we do until the
It's
first, should we say,
discussing.
grants committee meeting, say September, October, whatever it is that we take each one from now till then on a case by case
On its
decision.
own merits, isn't it?
On its own
If
merit,
it
but
don't meet
also on the understanding that in future the system will change. I mean, some of them can be delayed depending what dates their functions are. But a good point though.
I mean, we're not giving away our money, this is these people's money.
Yeah, I
Well,
agree with- I
well,
agree with you.
I mean, we're going to have a running total, aren't we? We know we're going to be updated as to when, as we look at the grants, we're going to have a running total, I would think, of what we've got available, and we take it on that case by case.
Okay, ladies and gents, we've got resolutions passed on that one. Can I take us to the Asset Management and Facilities Working Group? Without having a huge amount of debate, if possible, can we propose or...
Can I
make changes?
suggest we leave that as is?
Any dissenting voices? Seconded?
We
All
only-
those in favour?
Obviously we need to vote. We only need to vote if there's objections. Can I propose that we leave the Bonfire Night Working Group as is?
We happy?
Could we not tie that in with the asset management facilities? It's again, you don't have to discuss other items, but if you put it under that heading, if it's an agenda item without the bonfire, then it's the same. It all comes under the same thing. It's fairly broad, isn't it? But all I'm trying to do is cut down the number of meetings.
One less agenda.
And one less agenda, one less time consuming. Using the building for meetings, it's all going to work to the benefit of everybody.
And the confusion between the asset management and the open space, like when to stop becoming open space, becoming an asset.
It's an asset, it's not got a building on it.
Alright, so it has to have a building on it for it to be an asset.
Well, no, Bradford Meadows is an
Exactly, this is what I mean. when does one stop becoming the other? Because I never understood why that one was formed, because I thought that's what the Open Spaces Committee was to discuss. Or is the Open Spaces Committee just
Right,
purely
can I just
deals in woods?
Can I just come in for something right? The asset management and facilities covers mainly the buildings on, shall we say, charity land, the hall, the pavilion, the library. Is the buildings, is the asset
Is it things that are supposed to bring money in? Is that,
No, it's a general term for basically the buildings. Is what else rolled in it, Clive? Is it?
Oh, there's Ratford Meadows.
Everything we've got, the insurance figures it's all listed on the thing that Mark reads every year. So everything on that
is an asset.
Is an asset.
Yeah, this is what I mean.
Disposable or not disposable.
Yeah. To me, the asset management should be something, if it's
Right.
bringing in money, that's what we should be managing.
Right, can I suggest that at the next asset management working group, is there terms of reference for that? No, there wasn't, was there? If there's terms of reference for that when it was a committee, I think it's now been turned into a working group. If the group that's attendant on that meeting, they need to look at whether their terms of reference are adequate, and if not, change them. So the question we're asking now is bonfire night. Miles, are you willing to wind that into the asset management? You're willing to wind it into the asset management?
Yeah, there's no harm in it.
Right. I'll make a proposal then.
I'll second what it's already been.
Right. And I'll propose that the bonfire night working group now becomes a part of the asset management and facilities working group.
Seconded by Miles. All those in favour?
It'll just be a dedicated agenda, not agenda, but item.
Ladies and gents, are you abstaining, voting against, or are you in favour or not? Anyone else? Show of hands for all those in favour. I know it's warm.
if it's less than the majority.
Okay, that's carried. Thank you.
Right.
There's a bonfire. Budget committee.
Right, I think the budget committee needs to stay as is.
Second.
No objections.
Burial ground working group.
Well,
No,
that burial ground working group is a private group. It's not our working group. Yeah. So that should
No,
be.
no, it's, no.
All right, I do apologise. Yes, it's the new.
Oh,
it's the new one.
Spends.
Right. Can I make a suggestion on this? I know Clive's saying the asset committee. Right. It's a brand new working group. They've done a little bit of work so far from what Ben's told me. It's going to be a major project, and I think that needs to stay as a working group, definitely for the time being, to get it up off the ground and running, and then maybe at a later date, when we start making some proper financial... Right, it will be, but I think for the time being, I understand what you're saying, Claire, but for the time being, I think that burial working group should remain a working group until we start getting some things onto the table to start discussing. Yeah.
The burial ground working group, can whatever they come up with in the form of notes or ideas, can that be processed through into the asset management? Because I think you need to be aware of what's going on in different areas, not working in isolation. So I think whatever notes come out of that or ideas, that needs to be put into that, because it will finish up there eventually. But I think it's a better idea if
well, what the format is I know Ben's already doing quite a lot of work on it. The format is they will make recommendations to start with to full council. So you'll see the feeding anyway, and that will come in the form of some form of minute. And then if you wish to push stuff over to the assets, so that's the discussion. So if we leave the burial ground working group as is.
Yep. Second.
Finance committee has to stay as is. The grants, right, open spaces, again, I know I'm going to get some arguments against this. I think it's had 1 or 2 meetings in 3 years. We've proved as a council in the first 2 years we didn't actually need that committee, and we saved an absolute fortune by not doing, should we say, unnecessary work in the woods. So I'd like to make a proposal that the open spaces committee be now rolled into full council, and any major decisions be made in full council.
The only thing is with that, Stuart, I think because it's such a large area, like at the moment, I think we're being very reactive as opposed to active with that area. Like in order to get people involved with ideas, like we haven't done it yet with any committee on this council. Actually, get members of the public involved with expertise. I think we should keep it as a committee so we can get people with expertise involved with local knowledge.
Can we not have the public interaction?
We can, can't we? If we change the standing orders for the committee.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but the point I'm making is, it's only met 3 times, twice, 3 times in 3 years.
Well, I believe with the Open Spaces Committee, it looks after 100 and, how many acres? 40 acres, is it? It was 160 in the village. And there's areas which have been pointed out tonight which need seen to, which aren't being seen to. And obviously on the next meetings we can look at these areas that need attention. Anston Stones Wood needs something ideally just for that, really, I think. But as an Open Spaces Committee, that we'll have to do to look after the stones. But I just believe that we've got that much land to look after. To do it properly, it needs a specific committee to decide what needs to be done. And then as well, we can bring in expertise, because the terms of reference does allow outsiders, non-councillors to be on that committee. They won't have voting rights, but they can advise us.
Christine, then Clive.
I'd just like to point out that in my 2 years as a councillor, nothing at all has been done to any of the open spaces.
Can I just add one other item? I think we already deal with some of the issues down in Anston Stones Wood, don't we, that come to us, such as the land encroachment. There are various issues down there that council deals with as full council. When I got back home last night, today, I've had a telephone message left about people in 4x4s down at the far end of Anston Stones Wood and in the river, in the stream. I think there were a couple there at least, with, I don't know how many individuals were there as well. I don't know who they are, but the person that contacted me was quite concerned. They were walking down there, and they 4x4s. I'm not sure what, I need to speak to them a bit more in detail to get a bit more information, but they were concerned that these vehicles were in the river, and she was concerned that there may be ground nesting bird or whatever, plant, fauna that is getting destroyed down there. So it's issues like that how do does that? It's a great stuff like that needs to be discussed at council. But we need to. It is, but
we cannot do anything at all about that.
Getting some reaction, but it's our land, isn't it?
Can we bring it back to the proposal? Let's see how I've made a proposal. Let's see how it goes.
Okay. So I wanted to say I have information that the clerk informs me. I wasn't at that meeting, but apparently the last meeting of the Open Spaces Committee actually made some good progress, and some good decisions were made. I think they were made slightly later in the meeting after you'd left, Christine, so you might not have been there to see them.
I did hear about it.
Sorry?
I did hear about it.
So you heard of some progress?
I wasn't, no, I didn't hear of any progress, actually.
Jonathan and then Christine?
The last Open Spaces Committee meeting, there were 3 councillors present, and it was with Cresswell Groundworks.
It was during the day, I think, wasn't it, Jonathan?
Yeah.
It was early.
There were 2 councillors here. Another councillor turned up, then went, because then it would have been quorate. But then I turned up, so we had the meeting, which we had a good discussion, and we could make a way forward. That would make to come back to another committee meeting to decide what we actually are going to do. So we can't spend, which is fine, but then we can make a recommendation to the council with a way forward for a management plan of the Anson Stones.
Let's do it to the proposal anyway.
I don't think it's going to be an appetite, but let's go for the proposal and solve it one way or the other. So I'm proposing that the open spaces be brought back into full council.
Does that have a second?
I don't think it's going to pass anyway.
Microphone, please.
I don't need a microphone.
You don't, Colin, you're a good speaker. Unlike some.
Would you like it?
I've listened to what everybody said, and
if members of the public...
We are now 2 hours into this council meeting. We haven't yet got through 1/3 of the agenda, and my fear is, by combining the Open Spaces Committee with a full council, you get even less done. And the idea originally of working
Nothing to do with it, but you're right.
and subcommittees was to meet, to formulate policy and make recommendations back to the council in the shortest possible time. I don't agree with every committee being a full council meeting, simply because there's too much time spent rabbiting, there's too many debates, there's too many opinions. There should be a working committee. They're the working groups committees, and the council should really accept them without long debates.
Thank you.
Let's give us a second. I know what's going to happen.
Do we have a second for that proposal?
Which proposal is that?
Right, the proposal was to roll the Open Spaces Committee back into full council. We need a quick decision. If nobody's going to second it, it just falls. Right, it's fallen. Right, staffing committee to leave as is, because it's got to, and the working practices review subcommittee. I think that was something we set up in the staffing committee. That can be addressed inside there, because I don't think it was was it a subcommittee or a working group? I think it was turned back into a working group anyway. So we'll leave that.
Please keep the noise down.
Leave the working practice review as is.
I think it's easy to do that without speaking.
Did we change that back into working group? And he's looking at the workers' items. Did we change that back into working group when there was... Right, the working practice review subcommittee was actually a working group inside the staffing, so is practically defunct, so we'll leave as is.
Yeah. Staffing committee in terms of the number of people on the staffing committee.
Right.
I would propose that we would reduce that number. I mean, the staffing committee has leaked in recent...
Speak up, please.
Staffing committee has leaked information in recent months in particular.
Excuse me. The staffing committee as a whole has leaked information, did you say?
Yes. It is quite likely that a member or members of the staffing committee have leaked information outside the council.
Right.
The council leaks
Which
anyway.
council members
We don't know.
did that?
We don't know.
Well, I think you should find out before you sit there making accusations.
Oh.
Who said?
Can I-
Who's decided this?
Can I-
I'm not. I want to know who said what.
Bring it up at the staffing committee.
No, I can't. I'm bringing it up now. That's a very sweeping statement, Chair.
Can I just come in? We talk about staffing committee numbers, right? If we're going to reduce the staffing committee, I don't think we need to, because at the moment it's the same old people turning up again. If we're going to change the numbers, I'm open ears on this one, but if you remember last time, and I'll go back to it, we argued like kids round a table, how many was going to do this, who could be on this, and then so. Unless we're going to have a sensible conversation and come up with a sensible way of selecting people, I think we should just leave as is, because it's working at the moment. I do appreciate what you're saying, Clive, about numbers, but it is working.
It does work. The staffing does work.
So, can we move next business?
So we're not touching that then.
19? Nobody's put proposal forward. Move next business. In which case, 9.2. Any comments?
No. We're out.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you to discuss approved insurance. This issue's been on before, and did we not agree to pay for the insurance?
Could you speak into the mic, please?
For public liability, the other is for contents.
Right, so which one are we discussing here? Right. Is this about, they're asking us...
Tools in the shed.
Right, so we've given a grant, is it £115 approximately, to pay for their public liability indemnity insurance. We've also given another £100 for equipment. So now we're already having a situation where we have given more grant to this particular group than most other groups. And now we're being asked to pay for insurance to cover the tools they're going to put in the shed. I personally have sent an email around, I'm quite happy to say it in public, I object to them putting the tools in the shed because they will be stolen. The reason why the shed has never been used, and the reason why there's no locks on that shed, because every time there was equipment put in there, it got broke into, and the same is going to happen. If you take insurance out for them tools, you're wasting your time, because they're going to get stolen, and the insurance premiums are just going to go up. I personally have no objection to the group working in there, because I think they're doing a good job. But I think we've given them sufficient support already, and I object to the tools being put in there.
Just on that, can you suggest a place where they could put them? I understand why they want it up there, so they all have access to it, as and when. I know, that's what I mean, so to come up with a solution to that.
Well, we can't, can we?
So the only suggestion then is to leave it there, because that's the only thing we can do. Isn't it?
Gonna have to do what Bowling's doing, whatever it is.
I think one of the problems we may have, if we don't help them looking after their tools, they may call it a day, pack it in, and then we would have to stump up some money to pay somebody to come look after the burial ground. So I think the actual value, of the at the moment we pay is excellent value. It's really cheap. They do a good job, and if we had a contractor to do it, it would cost us 5-6 times more.
Could I ask, does anybody know what do they do with the tools at present and in the past? Do you know, Diane?
Sorry.
They've only just bought them.
What have they used
They
before?
actually have bought the tools, they cart them from their home to the cemetery every time they use them. If you've actually looked at the cemetery, it is a brick-built building. It has a metal door. The lock could be internal. It doesn't have to be external. And those tools would be stored in there along with the equipment that's used by the burial people.
I think because of the isolation that you cannot guarantee.
Right, I go back to my point. The point I'm making is, first of all, obviously we've made the point about that shed will be broken into. But the other point I'm making is, yes, the burial ground are doing a good job. The problem I'm coming up with is, they've had £115 public liability insurance offers. They've had a £100 grant for tools, so now on to 215. They're now asking for, I don't even know what they're asking for actually. How much more is it they're asking?
110, isn't it?
110. So now we're up into the 300 and some bracket. Yet the other groups that work around, that use the hall, etc., and ask for grants, we restrict them to 100. I go back to what I was saying before. We treat some groups different to other groups, and some groups seem to be getting more grant money than others, and that's just not fair.
Can I just make a
Can
point?
I bring in Miles?
Sorry.
No, wait.
Yeah, sorry.
I thought that the original, like when we set up the grants committee, was to give more money to those that have more effect on the people of the village, and they have a large effect on a large amount. They have more effect probably on members of this village than most of the other groups. So I think that's how we can justify giving them more money than the other groups.
You can't because you're not using the same system. Speak in Christine.
Right, so we agree they do a really good job for us. In effect, they're working for us. And I'd like to see anyone find someone to come and do the same job for £325 a year. That's a challenge to anybody. Go and find somebody who'll come and do it to the same quality and standard and conviction as well that the people there do, and they do a fantastic job for £325 a year. I think it's a bargain myself.
So can
Valerie, if you speak again, I'll ask you to leave. Very good. Thank you.
Can I just, I can't recollect the surprise council and gave them money to equipment. I gave them money out of my food and leadership fund to buy tools for
Is that done?
Clive declared an interest.
You also.
Declare an interest because you give them money. Just declare an interest because you give them money.
Yeah, Stuart's quite. I mean, I should declare an interest in this before I go on. But as far as I'm aware, the council didn't give them money for tools and equipment. I gave them money out of my committee leadership fund, which was £100 or thereabouts. There's a simple answer to this. The council owns the building. If you don't want them to store those tools in that building, you don't give them permission to do so. Then the question of insurance becomes irrelevant because it's so it's up to the council to decide in that respect. I personally think that they do a really good job, and as I say, if they can't store the tools there if you don't give them permission, so then any insurance grant becomes irrelevant for anybody because they can't put them in there. So it's down to council to decide. If you give them permission to store the tools in there, then they'll want insurance. If you give them permission to store the tools in there, I'll give them some more money to pay for the insurance, or I will with Jonathan. We'll split it between us. Of course, we can do that. So it's up to councillors to make their mind up. Personally, if they store tools and they get stolen, well, that's the risk they take. But it's the amount that they've got up there to move them backwards and forwards every week or whatever, either many times a week during the summer, autumn, whenever they go up there. It becomes a bit more onerous. And as Jonathan says and Diane, I think they're doing a really good job up there. But again, it's down to council. If you don't want them to put their tools in your store, then so be it.
Philip and Stuart wanting to speak. If one of you could please make
Can I just ask, are we sure they've actually asked for money to insure the tools? Because the email I've got saying We've been given a donation of £100 and we've used £90 of this to spent on gardening tools. We are storing this in the shed in the cemetery and have decided that we cannot afford to insure it against theft, so we will keep up, fingers crossed, that they remain safe. And that's it.
So we're not actually asking for insurance?
Well, not on anything I've got, but whether the officer's got anything more, I don't know.
They have asked the council to pay for insurance.
Right, I'm going to make a proposal to make it decide either way. By the way, Jonathan, have you given them any money? Is it part of your leadership fund? Because if you give leadership fund as well, then now we're looking at £300-400 they're getting. So have you given leadership fund?
No.
Right, right. So that's 400, so that's 300, 400. Right, just to get it resolved, everybody's had a say, to get it resolved, I'm going to propose that we decline the request for insurance. That'll solve it.
You've got to make a decision whether you still allow it.
We can still use the current one.
Right. I'll make. All right. I propose that we decline the insurance request and decline the request to store the tools inside the shed. So vote on it, and you can just change which way you want.
I think can we just vote on the actual thing there? I think if we just vote on the current one, I think that might be better.
Well, I know a proposal is made. Is it seconded?
Right. I can break it down. I can break it down.
Can we introduce another item in with the item as well? Because it's in effect two different items, giving permission for storing the tools and the insurance. The permission for storage of tools, not gender items.
Let's concentrate on the insurance.
Right, so just to get it resolved either way, my proposal is to refuse the request for insurance.
Are we happy to move to the vote? All those in favour of refusing the request for insurance?
Let's resolve it.
Okay, that falls. Any other proposals?
So it falls, that's it, it falls. That's why I did it, because you've got, in order to make progress, you've got to put things. You can't, right, just a point of order, you can't do that, Diane, because that's negating the proposal that we've just done.
No, it fell. Doesn't exist anymore.
Right, yeah, okay then, yeah.
All those in favour? Carried.
Right, what that means now is I'm going to start a thing now about giving grant money to people, because we're discriminating against other groups now.
We've already given them that.
That's to insure.
Which was £115.
This would take it to 200. That's the money that I get. It's a separate issue altogether.
Please.
Right.
I'm going to ask you. Thanks, Nick. I'm going to ask you. Please don't speak again.
Challenge.
Can we just clarify, because we gave them 115 for the public liability.
Please.
Right. It's my understanding there's £115 being given for public liability. There was given a £100 grant by the council for whatever they had requested. Just let me finish. For what they requested, and then on top of that, I think you've given a leadership fund. Right. So did we not give them an extra grant of £100? I'll check it what he said is true, because I'm not 100% sure. Right, well, yeah, because they're saying there's £115 for personal injury. It says, I know we have been given £100 from the parish and £100 from the Borough Council's Leadership Fund. So, altogether so far then, according to this, they've had £215.50.
That person who wrote that mixed up.
So as we are, we voted on it and we've
I'm confused.
Please. I'm going to ask you again. Well, it may be relevant, but we need to move on. If we have another interruption, we will call the police.
Can I ask, Diane, that at this present time that we withdraw your proposal and we seek proper clarification, because it's a bit confusing of what they're actually wanting money-wise. If we can get clarification on it, we can have a proper... I'm trying to get it sorted because we're confused of what's what.
The resolution has been made.
Can we move on to the next item?
Yes. Sorry, it's not for me to say, is it?
Do we vote on that? Oh, sorry, I didn't realise you voted, otherwise I wouldn't have asked you to withdraw it. I thought you hadn't voted, that's all right.
9.3, council objections, discuss issues regarding the lease
We've asked.
where it's confidential.
We were going to put everything confidential to 9.7, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Although I debate 9.6.
9.4 I think we can probably do without confidential.
I don't think it's confidential because it's only as like a book in the hall. I don't think it's a confidential matter.
Can I just raise a point on this? That, if I can, again, that
Speaking to the mic.
Council group that I'm on discussed this last year about Remembrance Day Parade and the Bonfire Night, because they have an events team at Rotherham at the Borough Council. So perhaps we can have a look at that one and see how, because if you do anything like that, you have to get permission anyway. So when it comes down to events, I mean, they do have a team there that are willing to give us some input into the parish council and events that we want to do, much like Councillor Lewis at Dinnington will verify for their Christmas event on Dinnington Main Street, which I think is going to be bigger this year, isn't it? I think, Brian, am I correct? So they liaise with the events team there. So can we perhaps pick that one up under another at another meeting and see what we can do, because it comes under the other one, 9.6, which is it says, I mean 9.4 says future events bookings on land owned or administered by the council, and then that
I think we've got.
So
the reason I'm interrupting slightly is I'm after a clarification. Are we discussing? It says to discuss or approve the role of the clerk and the senior administrator.
I think Clive jumped to 9.6.
Yeah, future. Are we saying? Are we wanting to discuss on this 9.4 whether the clerk and the senior administrator either does the booking or don't do the booking? Is that what we...
Yeah, so what I was proposing under 9.4, I don't think, unless anybody thinks to the contrary, I don't think this needs to go into confidential
no,
session.
I don't think so. It's who does the job, that's all.
It's simply that occasionally we have groups wanting to use, say for example, the field out here, I'll not mention dog shows or anything like that.
No, thank you. I'm glad you didn't mention it.
or other parts of our estate, and the clerk and the senior administrator have to bring some relatively trivial bookings to the council for its full approval, whereas in some cases, for anything that's not particularly contentious, they could just approve it. We have a situation that's occurred with the steam rally, in which we had something that was actually in the budget that we then ended up approving separately in a council meeting. We do the same with the hire of Rackford Road for Rackford Meadow for the VW group, for example. Once something's in the budget and the council's agreed to that, then surely the clerk and the senior administrator can just have a standing authorisation to accept non-contentious bookings. It takes the load off the council, and it means that we've not constantly got groups coming back to us saying, well, why has my booking not been sorted out?
Can I just can we make sure that the clerk to the charity is kept in the loop on those, because obviously the bulk of the stuff down here is charity land that comes under Michael's auspices. So I think it's just that it's the fact that he's aware of what's being proposed here, so he's aware, and I say if we raise any issues at charity meetings about this, then he's fully aware of what's going on. So it's really just keeping him in the loop, and from that point of view, and then he can't say, I didn't know about it.
Right, I'm a little confused at what we're actually trying to achieve. It says, to approve the role of the clerk and the senior administrator in future events bookings. Right. If somebody rings up and says, I want to book the field, Ratford Road, for X event, well, the clerk and the senior administrator would take that booking anyway. So,
at the moment they wouldn't. At the moment
well, why wouldn't they? That's their job, that's what they get paid for.
Yeah, but at the moment they would come to council and ask full council whether...
No. Well, yeah, they would take the booking, they would then seek the right information and then put it before council.
What I'm proposing is that for anything that's not particularly contentious, why are they bringing it before council?
Because I'll tell you one of the reasons I think it should come before council, I'm saying I want it council, is we have a situation with the steam rally where, I won't go into detail at the moment, is we're not very good at what we do. And I believe if I haven't have written an email, there might have been events happening that should have happened that hadn't. I'm trying not to go into too much detail because I think it's a contractual matter. But the thing is, all they have to do is take the bookings, that's part of the job. If it's a booking that's different, then they should gather information, bring it to us for council for approval. We're talking quite a lot of money if it's things like Ratford Meadow. There's other issues. It's not just a case of, yes, we'll take the booking and accept it and they can do it. I'll give you an example. I believe that for the steam rally, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think they're asking for a helicopter to come down again. Well, when we start making decisions whether helicopters can land there, there's some quite serious health and safety issues and aviation law, etc. we have to consider. We can't leave them delegate them sort of jobs. I don't believe it can be delegated for approval to the clerk and senior administrator.
Well, in the case of the helicopter landing, then the clerk should simply be authorised to anyone can give permission for a land to be used as an aerodrome temporarily for up to 28 days.
And is the clerk of au fait with all the aviation legislation and the health and safety implications of landing helicopters on fields?
The landowner simply needs to authorise it.
Not as simple as that. I worked with helicopters for 3 years. I'll tell you now, it's not as simple as that.
Is that a proposal that, can you just repeat your proposal?
Basically to give the clerk and senior administrator autonomy.
Yeah.
And
I'll second that. Can I just ask you a question? You were a qualified pilot?
Sorry?
You were a qualified pilot as well? Oh yeah, so we'll know about aerospace.
Yeah.
Thanks for your advice.
And I worked with aviation for 3 years, so I know as well.
Excuse me, Drew. I've had my hand up for 5 minutes.
Sorry, you were the next person on the list, Christine.
Why did Jonathan chip in then?
I don't know. He was...
I didn't realise you... I apologise.
No, I'm not
I
bothered about you chipping in, Jonathan. It's the chair's job.
The chair's pretty exasperated.
Well,
so can I ask for an example?
If you don't like it, Drew, there's the door.
Would you like
No, thank you.
Can I clarify a point? Sorry, Christine, I forgot you was there.
Right. I see your point, Stuart.
What?
Every situation is different, and because of that, it should be a council decision. You cannot just say that the clerk and the admin can give permission, because you have to judge it on its merits, and some councillors might have information that needs to be brought.
Can I make I'm going to ask a hypothetical question. So I'm now an events manager, and I've decided Ratford Meadow looks good to me, so I'm going to go have an event on Ratford Meadow. It's going to involve big massive fairground, a big fairground. It's going to involve alcohol with bars, etc. And on top of that, there's steam engines that are a fire hazard. So are you saying then that we're going to allow the clerk and the senior administrator to make the unilateral decision to say, yes, we will have that decision. I'm picking bones, but I'll tell you why. Health and safety.
No, Miles.
Brought here that they deal with. Can I give you an example, and I'll bring Colin in? We had a request recently for a treasure hunt in Amston Stones. A treasure hunt in Amston Stones is not particularly controversial, yet it had to come before the full council.
And it should.
Excuse me.
So it should.
We've got no details to judge whether it's controversial or not. We don't know how many people. We don't know if they're going to run mad through the stones. Are they all going to bring dogs and donkeys? No, Drew, it's not a fair comparison.
Treasure hunt with the scouts.
Now it's scouts, is it? You didn't say that.
Well, booking of Bracknell Meadow with alcohol and helicopters and everything.
Any treasure hunt, regardless of what group in the Stones Wood, has to come in front of either the Open Spaces Committee or the council, because it's an organised event.
Treasure hunt has to come before the Open Spaces.
Yes, because it's an organised event and it has health and safety implications in a triple SI site.
Let's get back to basics. Sure, with all due respect, you said if you were an events manager and you were holding an event, right, if you were an events manager, you would be au fait with health and safety legislation. You would be au fait with the Environmental Act. You would be au fait with the Children's Act.
No.
So I think, quite honestly, that's a bit of a red herring.
No.
If I can finish, Chris, please, don't interrupt. I didn't interrupt you. If an events manager is an events manager by name and profession and rings up the clerk to make a booking, then it is incumbent upon that events manager to provide all the necessary paperwork to accompany the booking. It's as simple as that. We don't have to go around the houses. We don't have to divert off into egg hunts. We don't have to divert off into the state of the grass. Let's, please, for heaven's sake, stick to the subject. And the subject is to discuss and approve the role of the clerk and senior administrator in future events bookings on land owned or administered by the council.
Right.
It's ever so simple.
So are you saying then that we give unequivocal control to the clerk and the senior administrator to decide what events go on our land and what events don't? I would definitely object to the senior administrator.
With all due respect,
yeah, I'm asking a question.
The booking will be accompanied by the necessary paperwork.
No, what's being suggested is, yes, the clerk and the senior administrator take the booking, but what's being suggested, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, what's being suggested then is they then have the unequivocal power to decide whether that event goes ahead without consulting council. That's what they're saying. Well, that's not what you're going to end up voting for.
That's not what you said.
You're going to end up voting, giving the clerk and the senior administrator power.
Time, we'll probably have to suspend standing orders next time because we have got a few things that we really do need to get through very quickly. Jonathan?
Maybe we ought to bring this back.
All I'd like to know is what is the difference, it's not a joke, so don't worry, between booking the hall...
Sarcastic. You shouldn't be making sarcastic
from booking the hall, or
meeting.
booking the field, Rackford Meadows, or booking football, or booking anything in the parish. Do we bring anything to council if someone wants to book the hall? No. We don't query what people... There are certain regulations that will bar people from having a firework display in it, say, because they wouldn't be allowed to do it. So I think it's a good idea. Let the clerk manage. We don't want to micromanage, and that's not that is not our job to do. So I think it's a good idea. We've had a proposal. A second. When I've finished,
every event is different.
Christine, you've been extremely rude, interrupting.
Yeah, no, I'm good at
very,
that.
very rude indeed.
Practice, Jonathan.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I propose that Councillor Sadler no longer be heard.
Oh.
Right. So, just to carry on, I was going to say that we'll take it to the vote.
Where's the change there then,
Chairman,
Drew?
could we take it to the vote, please?
Nobody second that?
you think second
I
take
propose
the
that
vote?
Councillor Sam.
No, Philip's had his hand up the last 5 minutes.
All those in favour?
Hang on, before we go to the vote.
Will you pass that? Oh, it's gone.
Jonathan and Philip. Christine? Yeah, that falls. Okay.
I was just saying, should we take the vote?
What
I think
what
we've
did you
thrashed it
say
out.
my name for?
I do think we've spoken to this enough at the moment,
Sorry to
and
interrupt, I'm standing on a point of order.
yeah, what is your point of order, please?
I don't have
Can
to
you?
address it to
You
you.
do actually, because it's.
No, you're not the chairman. Right.
I'm sure the
Can I
chairman
just ask
would
you
like
for
to know.
clarification? What actually happened there was, we apparently went shot to a vote. I didn't know what was going on, and I don't think somebody else knew what was going on. So what actually happened?
I didn't know what was going on.
Christine interrupted him despite being asked to stop him. Councillor Sadler had been interrupted.
You've got something right, Drew.
I think by her own admission, Councillor Sadler has spoken at length. Councillor Sadler had been interrupted. I stood on the point of order, asked the leader to direct question to the point and for Jonathan to continue his speech. And then I proposed that Councillor Sadler no longer be heard. She's in standing.
Can I have that recorded in the minutes, please?
That will be recorded.
Oh,
That was
excellent.
That was seconded by Councillor Jepson, but it fell on the vote.
Oh, did it?
The reason for the point of order is because I looked at another councillor, and they also seemed to thinking what's going on. I wasn't sure what happened. It happened quite quickly. So we're just seeking clarification. Well, I'm not disagreeing with what happened. I was just seeking clarification because it just seemed to go really quick.
Can we very quickly, we need to suspend.
Can I just quickly refer back to Jonathan? Jonathan, the big difference between booking the halls and booking something like this is there are set rates, a rate per hour, whatever, you know, and the thing that's going to cause this one to fail, I think, is if it's an event that's not covered by rates. I know there is a £37 for 4 hours if you take one field or whatever. If it's a bigger event, you've got to come back for a fee, basically. There's got to be reference on a fee. If there isn't, fine. If it's in the scale of charges, no objections.
Yeah, I certainly agree with Councillor Ms Matthews is right. If it's in the structure, what I set out for that, why has it got to come to us when we've already said tonight we don't get enough through as it is, and this has come up, you propose it, Councillor Manship seconded it, can we just get on with it? We've had a proposer, we've had a seconder.
Are we happy with what we're voting on?
What's the proposal? Can we repeat the
You can vote as much as you like, Christine. No hard feelings. Are we happy with what we're voting?
Right, can we have the proposal, just so I know what's going on?
So we're voting to allow the clerk and the senior administrator to allow them to authorise bookings on a non-controversial nature.
Right, so what's non-controversial? Right,
Who's going to decide
so what's
whether they're
non-controversial?
controversial?
The professional judgment of the clerk.
It's a pity we're not discussing steam rail at the moment.
Clerk can
It'll
tell
become apparent then why we're not doing it.
Yeah. Rowdy
And
Scouts.
it's seconded. All those in favour? 4. Yep. Against? Okay, that's carried.
I've just let myself in for the bag of worms.
Can we,
Now we'll wait.
I think we're going to have to resolve the suspend standing orders, so can I propose that we suspend standing orders, adjourn the meeting to allow the public to raise any issues concerning today's meeting? I'm sure there are many. And then can we suspend standing orders until 1:45, because there are just a few things that we need to get out of the way in confidential session.
Yeah, I'm just thinking 1:45. I mean, what we're doing again, we're back into the same situation where we're trying to finish at 9:30. The stuff we're putting into confidential session is we're only getting like an average of less than 5 minutes to discuss them, and some of them are quite serious issues. We'll see what we go. See how we go. Right, I'll propose that we suspend standing orders now to go into the public session for a period of 5, 6, 7 minutes. That will give us till 25 to and then we suspend normal standing orders until 9:45 for the public, for the confidential session.
I'll second that. All those in favour? Thank you.
I know I've cut it short, but we have to.
That's right. We'll go to item 13, to adjourn the meeting in order to allow the public to raise any issues regarding today's meeting. No resolutions may be moved under this item and the session will take 10 minutes. Kevin?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, sat here listening to this meeting tonight, and you can't see anything we've achieved, anything at all, to benefit this village. All you've discussed tonight is the way that you're actually going to form yourself as a council. You've got a village dropping to pieces, right? And you're sat here deciding on who's going on what committee and who's making this decision. And that's all you've actually done. You've got to know it's all the village.
Thank you. Nick?
I'd just like to say that we've just spent the last half an hour at least discussing this problem about one of the two ladies answering the telephone saying, oh yes, we've looked at another upstairs. Because yes, we've provisionally moved you in for this date, but it's got to go towards on the agenda of the next council meeting. That's all they're saying. Well, they say any not. Because the final decision doesn't count. Even if you've got creativity, all the upstairs, yes, here's where they want to do it. You say, yeah, we're provisionally moved you in for that weekend or that day, or whatever, but it has to go in front of the next council meeting where they will decide, where they will approve it. And that's all we've got to do. I'll just answer the question about half a minute then. What you spent the last half an hour discussing, which is very important.
Can I just make a point?
Sorry, can we...
You can do that if you want person, can't you?
Sorry?
I say you can do that if you want person making the decision. That's the whole point.
Oh, sorry. This section of the meeting is to allow people to raise concerns. We haven't got time to reply to them as the public. They can raise concerns. There'll be no by councillors around the table, and we'll go from there. Sorry, the gentleman.
A couple of things. There's a few statements said about this test application. I spoke to the licensing authority. They tell me that they'll accept an email as written objection, and they'll accept that tomorrow. So you can do anybody who wants to do that can do that. The second thing is that part of the objections you can raise, things you can raise objections of is environmental, which includes noise. There's a report from Scotland Council dated the 21st of October 2015, where their environmental officer says that the noise from Tesco is 10 decibels, too high. So how can the licensing authority decide on that? Tesco, 2015, they haven't replied to that. There's also an issue with the site ownership, which again Tesco hasn't replied to. So all these things are going to the licensing authority, where all these issues still to be made with planning, and I agree with the council down there that they aren't very forthcoming about giving any information. And I think the council should make an objection in the strongest possible terms to this licensing agreement, because I'm sure it's just going to be like a restaurant where we're told it's going to be one thing, and this is something that is in some way Tesco achieves. In fairness, they're very smart guys and they stick with the law. But I think we should make much objection to it as we possibly can.
What I will say on that one, without entering into a debate on it, actually, Councillor Jepson is probably our expert on planning, so it may well be worth speaking to him after the meeting.
Did they pass that?
Hillary.
Did they pass the plan?
Earlier in the meeting, you mentioned something in order, no, I can't quite point to where it was in the meeting, but about the packs being delivered. I want to know, why does it take 3 of the ground workers to distribute these packs?
Thank you. Sandra.
Just like to say that the skate park gave the burial ground, we carry a bag at Tesco, we gave all the money to the burial 50 miles, and they gave some of it back for the children, but the money went to the burial ground. And why can't the workers, our workers, help at the cemetery or do the cemetery?
Thank you. Any other questions? Points, rather. Thank you. So we'll go back into the council meeting.
We have to propose that we exclude the press and public.
Actually, we have one or two that we could do without that, so 10-4 needs to go in next week. 10-5, can we do 10-5 very quickly?
Can I propose? Can I
10-5
propose?
bat swarming.
Can I
approve the bat swarming, please?
Can I propose that we approve the consent for the bat swarming survey in the Stones
Members of
Road
the public, please.
on condition that Natural England are okay with the event.
Seconded by Lawrence. Do you want to speak on it? No. Seconded. So that's basically to
They did
give
it last
consent.
year.
Okay.
They're just saying they did it last year, and it's just a formality, really. Did we get the results back from them? I think we did.
Very rare bats.
It's a rare occurrence, not rare bats.
Is there a report, Chairman?
Please don't.
Is there a report available?
Why don't you write
Please ask
to the office?
clerk.
I've been writing since 2015.
Well, you can write to another, you've had lots of practice.
Hillary, please stop. So to receive the letters, basically we have 10-8, 10-9, 10-10, 10-11. Can we receive those?
Can I propose that we receive all those letters? I think the most of them are thanks, I think. And one about environmental crime.
One from the Mailboy Squires from the parish hall. And while I don't...
Run a rubbish service, people can say. Right, should we just go straight on?
Two of the reasons they're giving is the football.
So we have a councillor still on a point of order. Members of the public, please be quiet so that the meeting can continue. And then we'll hear the councillor.
Given two of the reasons is from the cricketers' cars and the footballers' cars, and those, they don't, it's not relevant on the Thursday night, because there's no cricket cars on Thursday.
I think the
football on the Thursday night. So
I think the main thing they've said in there is they're running out of space. But again, if we don't provide a service, we lose customers.
Excuse me, Drew. Did Stuart say to include 10-12?
No.
No.
And 10-13?
No, it was down to
10-8 to 11.
10-8, 10-9, 10-10, 10-11, and that was it.
Right.
It's just to receive the letters that don't need no action.
Okay.
Did we do that?
Can we have a second of that, please? All those in favour? Thank you, they're received. So, can we resolve to go...
Can I propose that we resolve to go into confidential session due to the contractual nature of the items to be discussed?
We've just got two items to do. We'll cover 10-4, that's the rally, and then we'll cover 10-6.
Excuse me, Joe. Did the clerk actually invite Lewis, what's his name, to come and speak?
There's an email from him.
Did he say he was coming?
The clerk will need to check. She hasn't got the paperwork with her.
I emailed him and said I would ask for it to go on the next council meeting. Did he receive an invitation to come? Sorry, I can't hear. I can't invite him, can I? I said I would ask for it to go on the meeting.
Christine, can you ask the clerk later, because we need to go into confidential session.
Yes, I know, but I want to know why he didn't turn up. I'll email him and ask him. Yeah, you do that, Dora. If we were waiting for him to arrive, you would think he'd received an invitation. But he's not.
No, we didn't vote on it. Thank you. Confidential session. Can I ask the President of the Public, please?